There is no God, only Allah. Lowercase God in the first case. But it's Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt, literally the same God. When Muslims say Allah, they mean the same entity. Jesus is a big thing in the Quran. Same as Moses and Abraham. Your comment is just ignorant. And also Arabic Christians use the word to describe their God. So, shut up. You're wrong. Allah and Christian gods are different. It's believed that Jesus is the Son of God and came in the flesh of humans as a God. Whereas Islam, Allah is said to be one and only, denying Jesus to be the Son God and the Trinity. Allah and Christian gods are different. It's believed that Jesus is the Son of God and came in the flesh. Ecstatic. I'm guessing you're a Holocaust denier too. Peace. Chauvin kills Floyd, causing the literally burning to the ground of Minnesota and its police departments. Police have been murdering black people for decades. This is a fundamentally flawed understanding. You've simply witnessed the latest in a long history of public outcry. Why? Alright, fair enough. Are you worried that black people will treat white people the way that white people have treated black people for centuries? Okay, can see how people may have misconstrued my comment. I wasn't trying to insinuate the Minnesota riot and Tulsa are the same situations. I see now comparing the two assumes that in comparing a racist white mob to the BLM protesters and rioters, which aren't what I was getting at, all of that could have been prevented if the Tulsa Tribune didn't feed racism by demonizing Roland. There are years upon years of history that builds up, creating the situation and circumstances that lead to such a tragedy. Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt. Ladies tee. Long-sleeved. Sweater and hoodie. Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly ladies tee. Ladies tee. Well, maybe because they keep getting defunded, attacked by big business, government, like the very post you are commenting on. As an example, there are many. The most famous one being Wall Street. As far as analogies go, Wall Street is the Wall Street of Wall Streets. Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt. How many examples of Black Wall Streets are there that have been inevitably destroyed by white people at various points of development? Or were there just one or two and then they all collectively gave up after encountering such resistance? Good Lord. You're dense. No amount of words can transform a fool into a wise person. Attempting to do so is, well, a fool's errand. I literally learned about it from Watchmen. Ignorant people like to say that if black Americans would just pick themselves up by the bootstraps and get to work, they can be as successful in America as white Americans. Well, maybe if the racists hadn't murdered all the black Americans that actually went out and did that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It really is a tragedy. Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt. Everyone always assumed that it was more of a violent event from both sides. That was on purpose. Took Oklahoma history twice. In HS and later college. I believe a young black man was in an elevator with a white woman and she said he allegedly raped her. This is what began the massacre. He tripped going into the elevator with a white girl and grabbed her arm. She screamed. The rest is history. I didn't learn about it until I took an Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt African American history course in college with a black professor. From Jim Crow to Tulsa to redlining to the industrial prison complex. There has never been a time in American history that black people cannot be enslaved. How is it that I'm 36? And despite Black History, the month is a thing the whole time I was growing up? I had never heard of this part of history until HBO commissioned a comic book spin-off. This really should have been in the curriculum. To begin with, I believe Russell Westbrook is working on the production of some type of documentary about it. Definitely a good way of raising awareness here. John Oliver's show last night was about how U.S. history doesn't deal with its issues. He talks about Tulsa a few times. But around 12 minutes in there's a clip of a black guy from Tulsa talking about learning about Black Wall Street for the first time when he went away to college. Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly long-sleeved. Long-sleeved. And nothing was ever taught about it. Didn't learn about it until I moved out of Oakland about 5 Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt years ago. I'm glad more people are being educated about it. Someone even made a sign for it here in GA during a BLM march I attended. I had a history teacher talk about it, but she mentioned that it wasn't required by the school or anything. Tulsa native as well. It's a shame how none of this is taught locally. Inc. 12. I didn't see or hear anything about it in classes until I started college. I wouldn't be Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt surprised if 50% of locals don't know it existed. Yes. And that doesn't make a riot good. Riots are still emblematic of groups not being heard. They aren't a good thing, but some good things can happen following one. They shouldn't require a riot. And riots can also lead to far worse laws if those in power have a reason to keep ignoring them. My ideal utopia isn't a series of burning city centers. Morally good. Riots are morally good, and the negative connotation is propaganda used to disparage attempts at fomenting solidarity for the downtrodden. You make a compelling argument. And you're right, I missed you were talking about decriminalizing, not legalizing. I never said that was your ideal. I'm saying riots aren't inherently good in any meaning of the word. There can be good effects or the powers that be can ramp up enforcement of whatever sparked the riot because it plays well with their base. AKA exactly what Trump has been doing. If this was happening in the 1960s, without the widespread access to cell phone video and independent reporting, I bet it would have been a massive boon to Trump. Good for who? Certainly not the communities Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt affected by them. That's for sure. The rioters were just spreading the word of God. I grew up in Ulaga about 45 minutes north of you, and the only time I ever heard about it was when my history teacher in 10th grade brought it up in one of his lessons. And we went over it for a week. The only thing was that none of this was supposed to be taught us. And he just felt like we should know and learn about it. He was also my football coach. People always referred to it as the Tulsa Race Riot, so everyone always assumed that it was more of a violent event from both sides. Of course, they did. Just like they're doing it 100 years later. Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly sweater. Calling peaceful protesters rioters. I also remember it being referred to as a race riot by Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt relatives, which did seem to imply it was a two-sided fight. It started as one, I guess. I mean, it was in part set off by a large gun battle between blacks and whites with an ambiguous start that led into the district. Then the massacre began. Reminds me of the East St. Louis riots actually. They're both riots and massacres. Really. But considering the death tolls and that it was pretty overwhelmingly one-sided, I'd start by calling them massacres. I live here in Greenwood, Black Wall Street, and it's incredibly sad how little is actually known about the massacre. I myself have only learned the truth within the last 5 years. Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt people always referred to it as the Tulsa Race Riot. So everyone always assumed that it was more of a violent event from both sides. It was quite shocking and infuriating to learn the truth about what actually took place. I am ashamed that they've covered up the events for so long. Such a terrible show. Even Oklahoma schools did not mention anything about this event taking place. I didn't even know about any riots until I was an adult. I'm glad it's finally getting the attention it deserves. They have also started trying to excavate the graves so the victims can receive a proper burial, instead of lying in a mass grave. I grew up in Bartlesville, approximately 40 minutes from you, and I never once heard about this massacre until last year. I'm in my mid-40s. Sickening. For what little it might be worth. I'm from Tulsa too, and we studied this in 6th grade in 1997. Guest speakers and everything. It saddens me Ecstatic Eagles' 50th anniversary highly shirt that so many of my fellow Tulsans somehow never heard about this. Doing little research, it sounds like the show used the event in the first episode, so there is that. Lindelof used this event. And yes, he used it to tell a fictional story, but one where history is influential to the present events. Many analyses have pointed out that Lindelof used history to influence the present in the series. Choosing the Tulsa massacre has its meaning to the present-day USA. All I'm saying is mention that in the post title clearly. Many would look at that picture and think it from the event, and it is not. Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly hoodie. Wait until they find out that. And Jews all worship the same Abrahamic God. Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt. Once I saw a guy get really offended when he heard the guy at the convenience store say as he thought it had the word Allah in it. I'm guessing he had no problem with the word adios or bidding someone adieu. That's semi-true. Christians in my country refer to God as Rab, which also means God or the Father. Allah doesn't mean God literally, but it's a derivative of the word all. Also with common use. Allah just becomes the Muslim God, so the guy in the comment is not totally wrong, because how otherwise would we refer to the Islam God? Wait till he finds out Eid is the story of Abraham. Great use of troglodyte. Very amusing. Troglodyte is such an underused word. The word is a translation. Ask any theologian, and God and Allah are proper names. You don't go translating Jose into Joseph. They are. The comments are so screwed up that I'm afraid to say anything at this point. You are all dumbasses. Okay, I need to be the devil's advocate. We need to get picky here, as the upvoted comments are showing once again that Reddit is a terrible source for theological discussion. Christians do not worship the same God as Muslims. It's a small but fundamental detail that makes them distinctive. Before you downvote me, let me explain. I honestly thought Black Wall Street was Tobacco Road in Durham. Is there more than one? Why aren't there scores of Black Wall Streets all across America? Ecstatic Eagles 50th anniversary highly shirt integration. Money stopped circulating in black communities and started to flow out into other communities. It's natural for commerce, but due to the precarious position black people are in, they feel the impact of that more than other groups. How did Tulsa manage to be successful before the attack? Why aren't there scores of white Wall Streets all across America? Because it's relative. It's called an analogy. And as per your question, other products.